Hi, my name is Peter Dove. I teach unaffiliated and affiliated dressage riders how to ride more beautiful and accurate tests by breaking down the mechanics of the movements, teaching how to flow them together, and also offering the judge's point of view, so they get higher marks, more consistent results, and ultimately a better relationship with their horse. The test I'm going to go through today is Dressage New Zealand Introductory Level Test 0:C 2013. What I really like about this test is it's very short, which is great for young horses. Since in another video I did cover entering the arena at A, we'll just go straight into working trot rising up the centre line. At C, you need to track left. So my question here is, do you know where you're going to start your turn? How far away from C do you start your turn? What sort of angle are you going to start your turn at? Do you know where you touch the track to the left of C? One of the things that you need to make sure is you create a very small pre-bend just before you turn, so the horse knows exactly where you're going to go. Make sure you're on the correct diagonal too. It's very important not to drift and to treat all turns like quarter circles. You're also going to need to make sure you ride your corner. Now, I'm going to try and avoid in the future saying ride into your corner, because this often gets people into a lot of trouble. People tend to use a lot of inside bend to get the horse into the corner. This can end up making the horse very unbalanced. What I will say about corners is that you need to know the angle at which you're going round that turn. And by angle, I mean the radius of the quarter circle that you're going to take to get around that corner. I'm just throwing up a diagram here, and you can see from this diagram I've mapped out to scale a 20 by 40 meter arena, and in it I put various sizes of circle, all touching the corners. We've got a 20 meter circle, a 15 meter circle, a 10 meter circle, and a 5 meter circle. Now you can obviously see a 20 meter circle is just, you're cutting off far too much of the corner. The 15 meter circle is more like it, but you really want to be aiming for a quarter 10 meter circle, and to make sure that when you ride the corner, you do ride that quarter circle. You're not drifting into the corner, you're not pushing the horse up into the corner with your inside leg. Remember, the dressage arena isn't the place where you should be schooling your horse. So if you want to improve your horse's ability to go deeper into the corner because he uses a smaller radius of quarter circle, then that's what you need to practice at home. And when you get to your competition, you need to know what that radius is. Just remember too that your radius for your corners will vary depending on whether you're doing walk, trot, or canter. At E, you're required to do a 20 meter circle. I guess one of the things that people don't do very well with 20 meter circles is to know how quickly they're coming away from the track. And often they leave the track not at E, but maybe a bit before E or a bit after E. You must step away from the track at the marker. The horse should step off that track at E with its inside shoulder. The other part to keep in mind with the 20 meter circles is that you need to keep turning. One of the things you need to make sure you're doing is that you know exactly the 4 points that you're aiming for in your circle, and that you deliberately ride the horse round on the circle. Drifting is definitely out. This is how we end up falling out. This is how we end up making far too big a circle. This is how we end up getting to the track before B, for instance, on the other side. So when you do get to B, it should be a case of really stepping on and stepping off and then continuing around on your circle. The next movement is to canter between K and A. What I can say about asking a horse to canter is typically people move from rising trot to sitting trot, and this is correct. Then they give their aids to canter. What tends to happen is I see people go sitting trot around about K, and by the time the horse gets into canter, it's already coming out of the corner, often on the wrong leg, and sometimes unbalanced, especially if the circle that you need to do is at A. Here's a little experiment you can try. I want you to just go trot rising round the arena, and when you get to A, I want you to count the number of up downs you do for 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now notice how far away you are from the A marker. I think you'll be quite surprised. So when you go into your sitting trot, you really should be doing your sitting trot before the marker, so that as you give your aids, you're at the K marker or a very tiny bit past, heading into the corner, and then the horse is more likely to strike off on the correct lead, and you'll at least have a little chance before you have to go onto your circle, if you have a circle at A, for instance. At B, you have to do a 20-meter circle again, and this gets even trickier at Canter, and people do tend to lose the horse's outside shoulder here, often by generating a bit too much inside bend. What I have to say about this is to keep turning the horse through your outside aids. Keep making sure the horse keeps making a turn, and you stay on the ball as to where your markers are. Now, one of the reasons why I really like this test is this approaching B working trot. Isn't that really great? You know, that means just before you get to B, you can come into working trot. You know, you're not doing like in some tests, you're going down the long side, and then at F, you have to go into working trot when the horse is already losing its balance all the way down that long side. So what a great test. There should be little to say about this, really, other than the timing of canter aids. You want to time your canter aids as the horse is on an upbeat, so that as the hind legs land, that the horse can actually make the transition into trot. Let's say you have to go into medium walk. Make sure you're accurate. Make sure you know how long it takes for your horse to make a transition. The transition should be clean, but we know that isn't always the case. So know how long it takes for you to make your transition, so that you make it at the marker and not a long way past it. Free walk on a long rein across the diagonal is often badly done. Usually the rider gives the reins away entirely, so you end up with a sort of free walk with a loose rein. Really, free walk on the long rein tests that your horse reaches towards the contact, is relaxed, and will follow the contact of your hand forward and down as you lengthen the reins. It shows that the horse is supple over his back and is happy in his mind. One of the things I do is I go to give the horse a little bit of rein, is I very slightly lighten my seat. And this does help the horse's back to lift up a little bit. And then I keep my seat light all the way across the diagonal. I keep it light too as I start to pick up the reins and bring the horse round. I don't shove my seat in and hollow the horse's back and start pulling up the reins to shorten the frame. It wants to be done nice and smoothly, all with the idea of keeping the horse round and soft as you make the transition. One of the things I spend a lot of time doing when I'm training a horse is making those smooth transitions from walk to trot. How do you get a smooth transition from walk to trot? How do you train this? When we teach our horse to move on the bit in walk, and we want to make a transition from walk to trot, people often focus on making the horse instantly make the transition from walk to trot. They expect the horse to go forward from the leg immediately. However, I'm thinking along the lines that the horse doesn't yet know how to make a transition from being round, reaching into the rein with its back lifted, through up into trot and maintaining that outline and that use of his muscles. So I prefer, when I'm training the horse, to allow the horse to take a few steps to move from walk to trot, so that it maintains its outline and it biomechanically works out how to make that transition from walk up into trot. And over time, this speeds up. Of course, the horse becomes used to the movement, becomes used to carrying itself in that manner, and can make the transition quickly and smoothly. A judge would much rather see a smooth transition where the horse maintains its balance, its outline, and its relaxation, than a horse lift its head up and move immediately up into the trot. At E, you're doing a circle 20 meters. We've already covered that a little bit. And then between H and C, you need to make the working canter right. We've already mentioned about when to give the aids for this transition. I think one of the ways in which this transition improves is it improves when your sitting improves. One of the things that I used to do is I used to go from rising trot to sitting trot, back to rising trot again, as an exercise to see if I could maintain my seat well enough so that my horse remained round and didn't hollow from my sitting. And I think that's a really good exercise before you start doing canter transitions to get the horse used to you sitting on its back for a period of 4, 5 or 6 strides without hollowing. We then have a 20-meter circle at B. Again, approaching B, you're doing the working trot. Once you get into working trot, the next movement is to come up the center line. Really make sure that you ride your corner. Don't allow the horse, after it's come out of canter into trot, to cut that corner for the center line. Otherwise, you'll end up really winging around there a lot. You really want to make sure that you use your corner effectively, so there's a small few strides of straightness before you ask the horse to do its quarter half circle up the center line. I'll actually say something as well about transitions from canter to trot. I think he who has control of the tempo, or can recover control of the tempo quickest, ends up having the most smoothest and balanced transition from canter to trot. As the horse comes from canter to trot, typically the younger horses will want to run or be quick. You need to use the control of your rising trot to get control of that tempo really quickly. And as your horse improves, you get control quicker and quicker, and before long it's a nice smooth transition into a balanced trot. Finally, you're coming up the center line. Make sure you've got the letter C between the horse's ears. You make the transition into halt. At this stage of the game, you can make a few steps of walk before you come into the halt. What I'll say about halt is, yes, we want to halt square. And I typically think the judge is okay with one correction, but you're actually losing more marks than you gain if you keep trying to correct, because the horse is seen as not settling into the halt, fidgeting, and in some cases you could end up causing the horse to step backwards, which is a no-no. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful, and look out for more training videos coming soon.